Booyah, Michał. Welcome back to another episode of Can't Handle the Heat, presented by Dr. Price Electrolytes. It's your boy G Swizz. To my left, we got
your brother Joe.
Josie. And all the way across Europe, we got Micah, Hawaii's chosen one. And in the past, we've interviewed a lot of people. We've interviewed ourselves. We interviewed volleyball players. We interviewed coaches. We interviewed sports psychologists. But we bring you, with LZ Sports Pro Agency, an agent who's represented people such as Joe and Micah, as before you, Grebennikov, Boyer, Nimir, Kubiak. We bring you Xavier Kapfer. Thank you so much for coming on, Zav.
Xavier Kapfer.
With that being said, before we get into it, I mean, you've had so much experience and dealt with so much talent in the past. We wonder if you can kind of give like a brief description of how you got into your volleyball background and how you got into becoming an agent.
Yeah, right. Thank you for the invitation first of all. And I was player like you guys. I was international French player, and I play, I think, 18 or 19 years as a pro. I play almost around the world. I play in France, in Italy, in Poland, in Middle East, back in France. And how I become agent, it's my agent, George Machazevich, back in the day. He proposed me to work with him, and I said, okay, let's try, and I enjoy it, and I start working with him, I think like 5 or 6 years ago. Yeah.
Awesome. And that's awesome. Zav, first of all, thank you very much. I know it's late here for all of us here in Europe. But, you know, I really want to get into talking about your process and going and recognize, because we have a majority American audience. And just recognizing American talent, how that works, what age groups you start looking at, like at what point do you start looking at athletes in America, and the process of actually going out and selecting players that your agency is interested in. Starting off with more of the American network, I would say it for this question.
First of all, so I used to be a volleyball player, and in okay level. I was not the best, but I was good. And I think after many years playing volleyball, you have an eyes on it. You can see if the guy has something. He's a talent. Okay, if he's a monster physically, it's easy to say. But if he has something else, you can see it. So, and when I see a player, I think it's pretty easy for me because of my background as a volleyball player. Then how I choose them, it's okay, I'm not here to promote my agency, but we are working with, as you said, some of the best players in the world, and we are interested to work with people who wants to go in the highest level and has the potential to reach the highest level. And after, I think it's more or less about a feeling between you and your player. You know, an agent is a player. It's more or less all in the relationship. You know, so if the connection is here, then you can work together. But if you ask me how I choose the guy, it's if the guy has a talent to reach a high level, I want to work with him. After it, he will decide if he wants to work with me or not, or with the agency, and then it's something else. But that's the way I select the guy. And for American player, you know the rules in NCAA. So more or less, you watch all the video, you speak with the coaches, with your clients, and they give you more info. And when the time comes, you can contact them and speak with them and explain your job, explain them your job, and then you see if it match. You know.
No, absolutely, and I think that's what that's a huge, I would say, disadvantage of American athletes coming out, is there's so much lack of knowledge. There's so much you're so far behind just the entire process of becoming a professional athlete. And we've talked about that before on the podcast. And you know, in these sport clubs here in Europe, you have kids from 15, 16 years old starting to train with the first team in the club, and really having an understanding of what it takes to be a professional player, the level that's required, what's important, like what skill sets are important to develop. And so that's something always for American athletes that I think is very difficult. In your opinion, what in general at this time is the perspective of European clubs and coaches and agents of American athletes that come out of college?
What I would like to say, you are right. There is a disconnection between American players and Europe because mostly the market is in Europe. You have a good league in Brazil. You used to have a good league in Argentina. You have some league in Asia, but there's a disconnection. The disconnection is the athletes in America. They are in college, high school, and most of the time they are the best of the nation. Most of the time there's a lot of fans. So the organization is perfect. In US, the organization, I visit few universities. It's amazing the facilities you have, and also you grow as a player with your friends. You are every time together. You eat together, you sleep together, you play together, you study together. And when you come pro, it's quite difficult because you adapt. First of all, you have to adapt to a new country, a new culture. You have to adapt to a different teammates, not the same age, not the same nationality, not the same culture, not at the same point of their career, and it's quite hard. So the American players, most of the time, they want to come pro, and after 1, 2, or 3 seasons, finally they quit because it's not what they expect. So my job is to explain them how it is overseas and to prepare them for that. From the beginning, for example, I work with Micah, and I told him every time I try to explain him how was it in a pro team, and so we try to manage this and to prepare him to be pro and to access to the top club. But what is sure, it's the expectation from American players are not really what they have when they arrive overseas. So it's quite that's my job, to explain and to adapt and to find the good country, the good coach, a good club for those guys, more or less.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think Gage and Micah has something to chip in. I would say this is a quick one. What volleyball skill set would you say needs to be developed the most for Americans, for the most part? Start off with receivers and setters. What is the skill set that you see mostly that needs to be developed in that transition from the college to professional level?
So in college, most of the time, the player who go overseas playing, you are really good physically. Generally, the American player, they are strong physically, but they are not used to play against guys who serve more than 120, 125 kilometers per hour, or the intensity of training is different. The way they train is different. So for me, it's not about what technically or physically they can do. It's not this. For me, it's more here, psychologically, if they really want it, if they have the Mamba mentality, if you want. Clearly. That's why, for me, it's really important to talk to them and to see if they are ready to fight for their spot on the team, to fight against themselves, to change something. So it's really here. Then it's easy if the guy is tall and jump really high and can receive. If you work in the good way, if you find the good coach, he will be able to receive it in pro, for receiver. Mm-hmm. Setter will be different, libero will be different. But my opinion, for the specifically for the American and Canadian players, so it's more or less the same system. Mm-hmm. They have to be ready here to face this different way of approach the game. That's clearly.
For me, well, speaking on that, I think that luckily I've been a part of a lot of younger teams where I've seen a lot of younger talent, and I can compare them to, Europeans that I play with, right? And then obviously I've been playing American club volleyball, youth volleyball for my whole life. So I see that a lot in the comparisons of the two, for sure. And it's the simple things as well. But another thing that I had a question about, and I know that a lot of our American audience, they may not be, some of them are high level, some of them are mid level, some of them are low level. And you had talked about, okay, if they have the talent, if they have this, if they have, I don't know, you watch a lot of the top NCAA volleyball games. But are you familiar with the term like a diamond in the rough by chance? Do you know what this means? So it's like, for example, it's you find like something. It's like you find, okay, there's a really crappy volleyball, but then there's that one really good player that has no like media around him or anything like that, but he catches your eye or something like that. That's what a diamond in the rough is. Yeah. So for our audience, like I said, not all of them are super high level players. Do you have a chance of going professional if you go to a super small college, or you have this video, or let's say I'm not a really good volleyball. I'm a good volleyball player, but I don't have a lot of media. I don't play for a great college. What do I do with the film that I have? Do they send it to you? Do I send it to? How would I go about getting an agent and becoming professional?
If you are a diamond, as you said, and we have to make it clear. The difference between Europe and US, it's in Europe when they are 18 years old, 19 years old, even 20 years old, they can come inside the professional club and to be a young guy, and they develop the guy. The problem with American, it's not the good term, but they come out of university when they are 21, 22, 23 years old. And 23 years old, normally you should be already let's say a starter six player. You should be a guy who are able to bring a lot for the team. The club doesn't really have time to develop you, but yeah, when you see that's why I've got an advantage on a lot of people, a lot of agents. I was a volleyball player. When I see a guy, as you say, a diamond, and he's 18 years old or 19 years old, I see him clearly. I see this guy, the way he moves, the footwork, the ability, the way he jump. It's just about, it's an athlete, and we can make him a volleyball player, But we have to take him early to bring him in Europe and to develop the guy. Or it's another way to do it. It's to put him in a lower league and to make him play. That's the deal with the club. Okay, he's not playing in let's say in Italy or in Poland or in France or even in Germany, but at least he will play and develop with the coach. That's why also my job is to be like this with the player, but also to make a big work with the club, because they trust me, they trust my opinion. And when you say you have to look at this player and you have to invest in this player, go for it. That's why for my philosophy, more or less, but I think that should be the way agents work with those talents, will be to, okay, the first 2-3 seasons, don't look at the money. Develop your game, work, be able to play volleyball, and then if you are good, the money will come, no problem. But to clearly answer your question, in America, they are coming overseas a little bit late in the age. So we have to work on this and find the club who will invest in this guy to develop the guy.
God, I understand for sure. And I think that's why I think Europe does such a good job or overseas, anywhere overseas, does such a good job of developing youth players. It may look more fun in the United States. You're playing with your, like I said, peers, you live with them, et cetera, et cetera. But at the end of the day, I think overseas and Europe does a lot better job of actually doing really good from a young age. And you see it in the Youth World Championships. I mean, USA always gets dang near last place in every single overseas World Championship because they're not at that level, and international overseas is.
Sorry to cut you, but the advantage you have in US, it's you know that you have to work hard. You have this culture. I'm a French guy. Most of the French people, for example, don't really like to work hard. In US, compared to West Europe, in West Europe, it's more or less, okay, you have to do it. You have to feel the game. In US, if I explain you clearly with statistics, numbers, and everything, that you have to work this really hard to reach this point, you will do it. That's why, more or less, it's easy to work with US player because you know that you have to work hard to get it, okay? And okay, you are coming out of US a little bit late, but you are a tough worker, and that's a big advantage. And believe me, every country has its own culture, and that's one of the big advantage. That's why in youth championship, US most of the time are not so good, but when they start to be 24, 25, they know they knew what they have to do, and they go in a certain level. And also remember what I told you, after 2 or 3 years most of them quit, but the one who stays, they really work hard and they will be good, that's for sure.
100%.
Yeah, and I think those are great points and something you hear a lot about when people talk about the American athletes coming over. What is your view as an agent? What do you feel like your relationship must be with the players? Because I hear a lot about all different types of agents, and speaking more so about your relationship with your current pro athletes. How do you like to have your relationship be? If you were to describe like the perfect relationship with one of your athletes.
So I think what is cool in this job, it's because it will be different every time. I mean, like I told you, the relation has to be like this. So you build your relation. What is sure, at the beginning of the career, the guys has to talk a lot, to be connected, to be, they have to explain, you have to explain him how it works and everything, but you build your relation and it will be different. Some guys, they need to talk every time. Some guys are really stressed. Some guys just call you and say, hey, what we're going to do next season, you know. My job is to create a relation. That's why I try to visit them at least 1 time per year. So, okay, with the COVID it was quite hard, but I cannot tell you the relation is like this with between an agent and a player. You have to build it. That's why I told you before, it's a connection, if it match or not. And you build year by year. Some guys will be friends at the end of the career. Some guys will be just professional relationship. But that's why it's also fun in this job, and that's why I choose also to continue in this job. It's because it's different every time. It will be different with a guy like Micah, a US guy, and it will be different with a Russian guy, or with a French guy, or Italian guy, a Polish guy, you know. So that's why it's cool. It's cool. But the relation is real because it's transparent. It's you don't hide any information. You trust. He trusts you. He trusts his agent. You trust the player, and that's why it's clear. So it's open. After it match or it doesn't match, but that's why you build the relation years by years, season by seasons, if you want, experience by experience. You know.
Absolutely.
No, absolutely. We don't want to take too much of your time. It is late. I have one question. What interesting question that people might answer to is what is the most interesting thing in your entire career as an agent that you've negotiated into a contract? Like funniest or most interesting thing for a player that you've negotiated. You don't have to say the player.
No. No, if you want me to give you example of career, I can give you your career example. But the most funny things, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but there is no really funny thing in the negotiation of contract. But, and I think Micah can tell you more about this. There is some funny situation during the season with some of players, right? Names.
I think
no names, but
I think something that like people don't understand also is that like an agent can be also responsible for you. Like your parent isn't going to step in to the experience that you have as an overseas athlete when you're fighting with a club or anything like that. It's an agent that it's kind of like it's like a babysitter for a lot of these guys. They become babysitters and have to put out a lot of fires. And so I think that's kind of what Xavier is talking about. I've been around when he's had to put out some fires. And those can, I'm sure, get extremely interesting. I can't even imagine the kind of stuff that you get clubs calling you and saying that a player did and I want to let go of this player. And then you have to say, okay, I will talk to him and fix this and fix that. And you can't let him go because technically he didn't break a rule. This kind of stuff that comes into play.
you don't want to let him go. I explain you why. First of all, you're right. You sign a contract with the guy and you are responsible. I mean, it's a professional relation. But there's some funny situation when the club, you know that the club will kill you because you did nothing as an agent. You did nothing wrong, but the player, let's say, drove his car when he was drunk, or go out in the discotheque and after come back at training drunk again, or get stopped by the police or whatever. And every time you explain him and he say, okay, he doesn't make the same mistake, but makes something else, you know. And that's what Micah said. Like, you are kind of the mother or the father or the big brother, whatever. But that's why sometimes it's funny. That's why sometimes it's funny after the situation, after all.
Yeah.
Okay. At the moment, it's not funny because when you have the president who say, "I'm gonna fire your player," or you talk to him or fire him, it's not a pleasant situation. So, but after also the player recognize what he did, or even if he doesn't recognize, he's pissed and he wants to show to his coach or to his president that he's a good player and he works more. But this kind of situation, don't ask me and this kind of example because I've got a lot. Yeah. Most of the time we finish and I mean we fix it. Because we explain everything. That's happened when they are young. You know, for example, American player, they were in university, they have a coach, they explain every time the rules and everything. And now you let them go in Europe, somewhere in Europe, with a salary, so a credit card, with a car. They are kind of stars in their team. So girls, publics, you know, discotheque, whatever. So you have to adapt also, you know, I don't want to say it's not their fault, but it's brand new. And when you are young, I was a player, you enjoy. And after at one point you decide what you want to do, if you want to become a good player or if you just want to enjoy. And that's what makes the difference, you know, but there is some funny situation. So not in the negotiation is tough, it's serious, but more during the season sometimes.
Okay. That makes sense, and it's understandable. It's that's never fun conversations to have. Yeah, we had the same thing in university too. Our coach had to deal with some funny situations. So.
And there's like 20. I remember my last year at Hawaii. There was 23, 24 guys on the roster, and they're all between the ages of 17, 18 to 22. You know, and anything, and then they're going crazy. So we I mean, to an extent, we understand. With that being said, we don't want to take any more of your times off. We just want to thank you so much for coming on, brother. Thank you so much for coming on.
We'd love to have you on again in the future, too. We'll have other questions, but we want to give people a little bit of insight into the whole agency because people ask us a lot about agents and who they are, what they do, and just basic questions. So we hope the people will be happy to hear.
That will be my pleasure to answer the question because, you know, when I was a player, I was in one part of the mirror. And when I became agent, I was in another part. And when I start working as an agent, I didn't want to work as an agent. Say, no, it's not for me. It's like a shark world, you know. But it's totally different. You work with people, with men, and you help them to build their career. So you go through a lot of things, but at the end you help them to build their career. And when it works, it's amazing. That's my pleasure when I see some guy like, let's say, like Micah, who reached one of the top club in Europe and enjoy it and overperform his team. It's amazing. When I see you in the German Cup playing with your brother, with your ex-teammate from Hawaii and play like kids and it works, it's really good. You know, I'm not playing, so my job is just a small part of it, but if you want me to explain this part and all the rest, that will be my pleasure because I was a player, and as a player back in the day, I want to know that, you know. So anytime you can ask me, no problem.
Awesome. And before we wrap things up here, just want to give a shout out to Dr. Price Electrolytes, our sponsor for the podcast. Add us some 20% off. Link in the bio. And just remember, if you can't handle the heat, goddamn kitchen. This has been another episode presented by Dr. Price's Electrolytes.